Hello my friend, welcome to the Commander's Crypt. We are going to talk about Saturo Umezawa today. This is actually my favorite commander in Neon Dynasty. Anybody that knows anything about me knows that I just love big creatures, Eldrazi, dragons, Leviathans, and I love cheating those demons, and I love cheating those creatures into play. So that's what we're going to do with Saturo Umezawa. There's been a lot of discussion around this commander, and I really like it. But before we get into that, I'd like to ask you to subscribe and to hit the like button. If you like this video, we are a new channel, and we are going to be doing some exciting things in the future. We've got contests coming up, and raffles for decks, cards, and other prizes too. So I know I've been hawking that the last couple of videos, but here soon we will have that online. So without further ado, we'll talk about Saturo Umezawa. He is a legendary creature, a human ninja. Whenever you activate a ninjutsu ability, look at the top 3 cards of your library. Put one of them into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. This ability triggers only once each turn. Each creature card in your hand has ninjutsu, black, blue, and variable 2. So, as you can see, this guy is very strong. First sentence says that anytime you activate a ninjutsu ability, you can look at the top 3 cards of your library. So if you've got a bunch of ninjas in your deck and they activate the ninjutsu abilities, you get to dig 3 cards and put the best one of those cards into your hand. So already that's strong. But then the last sentence says each creature card in your hand has ninjutsu too, and that is extremely strong. That allows you to sneak in any creature that's colorless, black, or blue. And that's what we're going to do with this deck. In order to cheat your big creatures in, though, what we have to do is we have to find ways to get your creatures through to opponents without being blocked or stopped. So what we're going to do is the first phase of this deck is putting enough small creatures with evasion into play so that they can then be unblocked, so Saturo can activate his ninjutsu ability. Here we've got the Thousand Face Shadow. I absolutely love this guy. When I started putting this deck together at first, I was thinking about putting one of my Arabian Nights Flying Men into the deck because for 1 blue it's a 1/1 flyer, and I figured if we got this, the Flying Man out early and he hit, we could bounce it back into my hand. It would only cost 1 blue to put him back out to do it again next turn. But Thousand Face Shadow, he's even better. Brand new creature, human ninja with ninjutsu, blue, and 2 colorless, flying. When Thousand Face Shadow enters the battlefield from your hand, if it's attacking, create a token that's a copy of another target attacking creature. The token enters the battlefield tapped and attacking. So, as you can see, this guy is amazing. He's already got evasion, very cheap, but very strong abilities too. So when he enters the battlefield from your hand, if it's attacking, create a token that's a copy of another target attacking creature. So basically what you do with this guy is, if he's in your hand, you got a big creature attacking, like a Lord of the Void or a Blightsteel Colossus or something like that, then you can bounce the unblocked creature back to your hand, activate this guy's ability for 2 blue and 2 colorless, and make a copy of that creature that's also attacking. So as you can see, this is a force multiplier. Very good card. The next card we're going to put in here is a Changeling Outcast. The good thing about the Changeling Outcast is he's all creature types. So he is also considered a ninja. For 1 black, he's a 1/1 changeling that can't block and can't be blocked. So basically, you can put him out first turn, or Thousand Face Shadow first turn, or some other 1 casting cost unblockable creature. Second turn, do something. Third turn, play Saturo. Fourth turn, ninjutsu a big creature into play, and potentially be able to recast that 1/1 unblockable to be able to do it again the next turn. Next we have Kiku, Knight's Flower. I absolutely love this card. This is one of my favorite cards. This is from the original Kamigawa block from the early 2000s. And she's always been one of my favorite characters just because I liked the art. I always thought she was a hottie. But she's a legendary creature, a human assassin. For 2 black, 2 colorless, target creature deals damage to itself equal to its power. I included this into the deck for the Kamigawa flavor, but also, in my opinion, this card, this human assassin, is one of the best cards in Magic that's never played. And what I mean is, she can take out anything. Any big dragon, big green stompy, for 2 black and 2 colorless, she has them deal whatever their power is to themselves. But also, another overlooked ability that she has, she is able to take out infect creatures. Oh, Blightsteel Colossus? No problem. She basically targets them, and Blightsteel Colossus with infect says that it does damage to creature with -X counters. So when she targets Blightsteel Colossus, the negative counters takes him out. Let's say you've got a green Death Toucher with reach, or any type of Death Touch creature. Even if its power is smaller than its defense, she will have it do 1 damage Death Touch to itself, and it will kill it. So I put her in this deck because she's a 1/1, and later on we're going to see I've got a Yuriko in here, and she makes 1/1s unblockable. So she could be good. Second turn you put her out, and third turn you swing and get the Monarch if your play group plays the Monarch. Then Saturo comes out. Fourth turn, if somebody's open, you could still use her to block. So she's good early game. You could use her to attack to be unblocked to ninjutsu a creature in on the 4th turn. So she's good on the early game, but she's also good late game. If she comes out, you can use her ability to destroy problematic creatures that your opponents might put out. And she can just keep obliterating everybody else's commanders. So she's a very, very strong card. I'd highly recommend picking some up. One of my favorite cards in Magic. Next, I put a Siren Storm Tamer in the deck. The reason why I did that is because I originally had a Spellskite in the deck. Spellskite is an artifact, horror, for 2 colorless, and then for 1 Phyrexian mana you could have it change the target of a spell or effect, because you're going to need that type of stuff in this deck to protect Saturo, because once everybody sees that you're playing Saturo, you're going to have a big target on your head. So you're going to need ways to protect Saturo or to counter or blunt any spell attacks on him. So I pulled out the Spellskite and put Siren Storm Tamer in his place because she's a 1/1 flyer, so she can be used cheaply to attack and activate the ninjutsu ability and then play her again. But she also says sacrifice Siren Storm Tamer : counter target spell or ability that targets you or a creature you control. That's good because you could still attack with her, and even if she's tapped, you can still sacrifice her to counter the target spell or ability that's trying to hit you or your commander. Next we've got Tormented Soul, basically a 1/1 unblockable creature to take advantage of the ninjutsu ability of your commander. After that we've got Dimir Infiltrator. Dimir Infiltrator, you know, he is also unblockable for 1 black and 1 blue, but he also has Transmute, so you can search your library for a card with the same converted mana cost as this card, reveal it, and put it into your hand, so it's a cheap tutor. For 1 black, 1 blue, and 1 colorless, you can search your deck for any card that has a 2 converted mana cost. He can't be blocked, so he's got value. You can use him for your commander's ninjutsu ability, or you can tutor up for something later, maybe an Animate Dead or something like that. Next I put a Stinkweed Imp in there. Stinkweed Imp is good because he has evasion, and opponents may not want to lose whatever big flying creature they have. So he has evasion, he has death touch, and if somebody chooses to block with him, then you kill their creature. That could be a potential threat for you later, but then also you could use him to block. With this deck, you're going to be attacking a lot, so you need any type of defense that you can do, and you can also use this card for its ninjutsu value with your commander. Next card I put in there was a good card I'm high on, Runo Stromkirk. Legendary creature, he's a vampire cleric, flying. When Runo Stromkirk enters the battlefield, put up to 1 target creature card from your graveyard on top of your library. At the beginning of your upkeep, look at the top card of your library. You may reveal that card. If a creature card with mana value 6 or greater is revealed this way, transform Runo Stromkirk. So he has evasion, he is a 1/4 flyer, but then what happens is you can take a creature out of your graveyard and reanimate it basically and put it back on top of your deck. But then what happens is he flips, and then when he flips, he has flying. Whenever he becomes Crothus, Lord of the Deep, and whenever Lord of the Deep attacks, create a tapped and attacking token that's a copy of another target attacking creature. If that creature is a Kraken, Leviathan, Octopus, or Serpent, create 2 of those tokens instead. This deck does have Leviathans and Krakens, and so if you're going for a cheaper build, Leviathans, Krakens, Octopi, and Serpents are cheap to get, and he makes a token of another attacking creature that you have. He could potentially make you a second Blightsteel Colossus, or if it is one of those sea creatures, he can make 2 of those copies instead. And you'll see I do have a couple of Leviathan and Kraken in this deck. I have a spawning Kraken that already on its own creates 9 Kraken tokens, and you use this guy to target that guy, and now you're making 2 tokens or more per turn as you keep proliferating all of those creatures. So very good card. Next is Bitter Blossom. Bitter Blossom is a very good card. It allows you to create a fairy during your upkeep. Every turn you lose 1 point of life every time you do. And now second turn you can play this, and third turn you start pumping out fairies, and you can use those fairies to attack and not be blocked potentially, and then you could ninjutsu creatures with Saturo's ability every turn with this and not have to spend any more mana putting out creatures. You could also use it to help you block later. I put a Blink Moth Nexus also in the deck because of the surprise factor. There's a couple of things that's good about this card. You can play it first turn. Second turn it becomes a 1/1 Blink Moth artifact creature with flying and infect until end of turn. So if your playgroup is playing with the Monarch, second turn you can activate this guy, fly off, infect somebody with a point of infect poison counter, get the Monarch, and draw a card. So in playgroups that use the Monarch, man lands are very good to have, and also there are other creatures in my deck that I will show you that have infect, so that could get the ball rolling, get somebody closer to being taken out from infect damage. Next you have the Invisible Stalker. He is a 1/1 blocker, unblockable, but he has hexproof, so he's going to be hard to eliminate through a spell. Next, another 1/1 unblockable, Thalicos Seer. This creature has shadow, and that means it can only be blocked or block other creatures with shadow. Shadow was actually one of my favorite mechanics from the Tempest block back in like 1998. But the good thing about this card is for 2 mana you can play it. When it attacks, you can bounce it back into your hand, drop your big fatty, but then it says if Thalicos Seer leaves play, draw a card. So now you're drawing cards, playing lands, playing this guy down. Every time he comes in unblockable, you bounce it back to your hand with a ninjutsu ability and draw a card. Next is the Baleful Strix. Baleful Strix, kind of the same thing but in reverse. 1 black, 1 blue artifact creature bird, flying death touch. When Baleful Strix enters the battlefield, draw a card. Same thing, second turn you play him, or late game you play him to draw a card. Bounce it back into your hand with Saturo's ninjutsu ability and play him again, draw a card, attack with him again. It can also be used to help block while you are attacking. This is another one of my favorite cards. Nobody plays this card, and I'm amazed that nobody does. This card is basically a reanimation on a stick, and that's another thing you're doing with this deck is you're putting out a bunch of little 1/1 creatures that are actually very strong, so players have to waste kill spells on them, or they will just take over the game themselves. Like with Coffin Queen, she's basically a wizard that allows you to tap her and 1 black 2 colorless, put target creature card from any graveyard into play under your control. Remove that creature from the game if Coffin Queen becomes untapped or if you lose control of Coffin Queen. So as you can see, this chick is pretty badass. She basically every turn, if you want to, you can take the best creature out of all the graveyards and put it into play under your control. So if I did this the other night, I saw somebody had a creature in their graveyard with a really juicy ETB, and I took it and used it to exile some creatures and then blocked with it. And another good thing about the Coffin Queen is when she takes out a creature out of the graveyard, if you untap it or if it dies, it gets exiled. So it's kind of like a night soil, where you're able to take people's best creatures, and when it dies, the creature is exiled. So this is a very fantastic card. You could also use it to activate Saturo's ninjutsu ability with Yuriko. So I'd highly recommend this card. It's a very good card. It's like it's almost made for Commander. And there she is. I said Yuriko, but that's Saturo Umezawa, Fugitive. Legendary creature. She's a human rogue. Creatures you control with power or toughness 1 or less can't be blocked. And there you go. All of these power 1 creatures cannot be blocked once she's put out. So and she can't be blocked either. So that's basically the first part of the deck, the unblockable 1/1s, for you to be able to ninjutsu your creatures into play. This card, Dauthi Voidwalker, is an absolute beast. I love this card. He is extremely strong, and is going up in price. I was able to get my hands on a nice foil here. He is a for 2 black. He is a 3/2 shadow, and it says if a card would be put into an opponent's graveyard from anywhere, instead exile it with a void counter on it. Then, so right there, anytime anybody has a card that goes into the graveyard, it gets exiled, and you get a void counter put on it, and you are able to then cast one of those spells. The second sentence says, sacrifice Dauthi Voidwalker, choose an exiled creature an opponent controls with a void counter on it. You may play it this turn without paying its mana cost. So this guy's going to be able to attack, not be blocked. Anytime any opponent's cards hit the graveyard, they're exiled. And if you want to later, you can play those cards. This is just a fantastic card, and I really like it. I like that they're coming back with some of the shadow mechanics with some of these guys. This was another one of my favorite cards back in the day, the Dauthi Slayer. Same thing, he's a Dauthi. For 2/2, he has shadow, he has to attack each turn. And if you notice, he's got a knife that he's sticking into something there with the tree, and that's pretty much the same picture with this Dauthi. He's by some tree with a blade. Next I've got Stormtide Leviathan. This guy works well with Runo Stromkirk because he's a Leviathan. The reason why I have this card in this deck is what it does is, once it hits the board, unless there's flyers out there, he's the only one that's able to attack. This card locks down everybody else's cards that are on the ground, not flying. And he says he has Island Walk, and all lands are islands in addition to their other types. Creature without flying or Island Walk can't attack. So I put this card in here because it works with Stromkirk, but also it stops, smaller armies from just, swarming you. There's another Kraken, Trench Behemoth. He's a 2 blue, 5 colorless he's a 7/7. Return a land you control to its owner's hand. Untap Trench Behemoth. It gains hexproof until end of turn. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under control, target creature an opponent controls attacks during its controller's next combat phase if able. So I put this guy in here too. He also works really well with Stromkirk, but also you're going to see that with these big creatures, it doesn't do any good to have big creatures if you can't attack with them. But when you attack with them, what happens is you're wide open for the crackback. So the reason why this card is in the deck is because of its ability. It allows you to bounce a land back to your hand, and it then untaps the Trench Behemoth. It then gains hexproof, and now it's able to block because it has goaded someone else's creature. So whenever a land comes into play, you can goad someone else's creature, and then that creature now has to attack. He's not going to attack you because you can untap the Trench Behemoth, and he'll crash right into it. So that's the reason why I have this card in there, for the hexproof and because of the blockability. Another thing that's going to happen is when you're playing this deck, everyone's going to be gunning for you because they're afraid that you're going to drop a Blightsteel Colossus on their head at any second. So they're going to be trying to kill your commander, trying to kill you, trying to kill your creatures, dropping board wipes, all that kind of stuff. So I put a solo new Phyrexia in the deck. You can bring it out, and if you have the extra mana, when someone goes to drop a board wipe, you can make sure that your creatures and your permanents all are indestructible. So that's the reason why I put that deck into this. I mean, he's already a 6/6 for 6. That's very good. He's got trample, and even when he goes into your graveyard, there's the surprise effect. People will forget that he's in your graveyard, go to drop a board wipe on your creatures, and you can use him while he's in your graveyard to make all of your permanents indestructible. Last sentence says 5, exile Soul of New Phyrexia from your hand, or from your graveyard. Permanents you can control gain indestructible until end of turn. So that's why I put him in there. Now, you know, there's a couple ways that you can go with this deck. If you have the budget, you can put the expensive Eldrazi in there, and if you don't, the lesser Eldrazi are still very good and don't, you know, won't break the bank. So here we have Artisan of Kozilek for 9 colorless. If you cast him again, you can reanimate a creature out of your graveyard and put it onto the battlefield. But then also, if you use Umezawa to club your friend over the head with him, it's a 10/9, so they'll take 10 damage. And then next time when it attacks, it has Annihilator too. So that's why this is in there. There's a couple ways you can build the Umezawa deck. I went with the Reanimator package, which I'll show you later. But because what's going to happen is if your creatures die, you can just bring them right back. But you know, if you want, you could probably also just, instead of going with the Reanimator package, go with the Counterspell package. There's another cheap Eldrazi. For 11, he's a 9/9 Annihilator 3. He can't be blocked except by 3 or more creatures. So this guy is very good. Doesn't cost much to get as far as price, and you know, he's a 9/9. We call that the 9-ball. Somebody's going to take a 9-ball to the head. Next, now we're starting to get into pricier Eldrazi. It That Betrays, it has Annihilator 2 for 12 colorless. It's an 11/11. Whenever an opponent sacrifices a non-token permanent, put that card onto the battlefield under your control. So basically what happens is when you attack with this, the Annihilator trigger makes them sacrifice something, and if it's a non-token permanent, then you get it. So if they don't have any creatures to block with, you're probably going to be getting their artifacts or their lands. Next is a duplicate. You're going to need some removal with this deck, and duplicate's very good. For 6 colorless, it's a 2/4 imprint. When duplicate enters the battlefield, you may exile target non-token creature. As long as the exiled creature is a creature card, duplicate has that card's power, toughness, and creature types. It's still a shapeshifter. So this card you could use to cheat in to take out bigger creatures that are threats, and it exiles whatever the target is. This is good against Avacyn. I did this I played a game a few weeks ago where I had a duplicate, and then I put a Helm of the Host on the duplicate, and then every turn I was creating a copy of duplicate and exiling my opponent's biggest threats. Avacyn, I just kept exiling her and other creatures. More removal. Meteor Golem for 7 mana, a 3/3. When it enters the battlefield, destroy target non-land permanent opponent controls. You could cheat this in with Umezawa and destroy the permanent on the board that's giving you the most problems. There's another Kraken, spawning Kraken. 1 blue, 5 colorless. Whenever a Kraken, Leviathan, Octopus, or Serpent you control deals combat damage to a player, create a 9/9 blue Kraken creature token. So as you can see, that could get out of hand very quickly. And with Stromkirk, you basically can create two of these, then 4 of, it just gets out of hand. Spawning Kraken on its own, creates Kraken that allow you to then block and stop the crackback. But then with other, creatures that you have in this deck that create copies of this creature, you can just attack at will, and you'll just be creating more and more Krakens. Next, we've got Demon of Loathing. I put this in here because once it hits, the player that it hit sacrifices a creature. So if there is a problematic indestructible out there, you cheat this in, and once it hits, that target player has to sacrifice a permanent. Next is Phyrexian Ingester. Kind of the same thing with the duplicate. 1 blue, 6 colorless imprint. When it enters the battlefield, exile target non-token creature, and it gets +X+Y, where X is the exiled card's power and Y is its toughness. So again, you have more elimination that you can cheat in, and this exiles the biggest creatures, and now your Ingester is now the biggest creature. Steel Hellkite. This was put in the deck for the removal. Steel Hellkite's one of the best cards in Commander, I believe. It's a 5/5 flyer, and you can give it fire breathing, 2 colorless. It gets +1/+0 till end of turn. But then X: destroy each non-land permanent with converted mana cost X where controllers was dealt combat damage by Steel Hellkite this turn. Activate this ability only once each turn. So basically what happens is you can cheat this guy in with Saturo, and once he hits, let's say your opponent has a bunch of tokens, your X can be 0. You destroy all of his tokens. Let's say he's got a problematic Luminarch Ascension enchantment. Once you get through with this, with your unblockable, and cheat this guy through the Luminarch Ascension angels that are all out there, you can kill the enchantment. So very good removal card for decks that need extra removal. Speaking of removal, there's Overseer of the Damned. This card's good for a few reasons. What it does is, when it comes into play, you can target a creature, and now because the rules have changed, even when commanders get killed, they still go to the graveyard, then go to your command zone, so you still make a zombie. It says when Overseer of the Damned enters the battlefield, you may destroy a target creature. Whenever a non-token creature an opponent controls dies, put a 2/2 black zombie creature token onto the battlefield tapped. So you can, and I've done it in this deck, you can cheat him in and kill somebody's commander that's going to be giving you problems. Another really good reason this card is good is if somebody board wipes, let's say there's a bunch of creatures on the board and somebody board wipes and they all hit the graveyard, you can stack it to where you get, you know, however many creatures died, and you create that many zombies. 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 creatures die. You get 10 zombies. Everybody else loses their creatures, but next turn you've got an army of zombies to continue the attack. Next, I've got Doom Whisperer in here. He's really good. I mean, already he is a 6/6 for 2 black and 3 colorless. A 6/6 flyer for 5 is already fantastic. But then he's got Trample. But wait, there's more. He's got Pay 2 Life, Surveil 2. Look at the top 2 cards of your library, then put any number of them onto your graveyard, and the rest on top of your library in any order. So what you can do is pay 2 life and just keep throwing cards into your graveyard if you're searching for something, or if you're looking to put a bunch of big creatures in your graveyard because you want to reanimate them later. Then that's why this guy's in the deck. He basically hits for 6 and allows you to search for something if you're looking for something, or to fill your graveyard. Next is Lord of the Void. He is a 7/7 flyer. Whenever Lord of the Void deals combat damage with a player, exile the top 7 cards of that player's library, then put a creature card from among them onto the battlefield under your control. I actually have this card in my Kalia of the Vast deck as well, just like I have the Doom Whisperer and the Overseer of the Damned, because like I said, anybody will tell you I absolutely love commanders that cheat big creatures in. So this guy hits, you get to exile the top 7 cards of somebody's library. So it's not even like in their graveyard. You exile 7 of their top cards, which could be devastating, but then you take the biggest creature out of there and put it on your side. Next is Rexial, the Risen Deep. He's a 5/8. He's got Island Walk and Swamp Walk. So whenever, and here we got another Kraken that works really well with Stromkirk. Island Walk, Swamp Walk. Whenever Rexial deals combat damage to a player, you may cast target instant or sorcery card from that player's graveyard without paying its mana cost. If that card would be put into a graveyard this turn, exile it instead. So let's say that you know somebody, one of your opponents has a nice juicy sorcery or instant card in their graveyard, and you've got a handful of creatures. You can decide to drop in Rexial with Umezawa's ability, hit, and then cast that instant or sorcery card for free. And I've got an Urborg, Tomb of Yawgmoth. Each land is a swamp in addition to its other land types. That works really well with Rexial. All, just like the Leviathan I showed you earlier that gave all lands Island Walk, this one will make all land swamps, and now Rexial has Swamp Walk, and I can go from opponent to opponent, hitting them, casting their best instants and sorcery cards out of their graveyard. Next I've got Razaketh, the Foul-Blooded, the 8-ball, Flying Trample, pay 2 life, sack another creature, search your library for a card and put that card in your hand, then shuffle your library. This works really well with Bitter Blossom. It works really well with other token generators, which I'll show you later. So again, you can cheat this in. Even after you hit, it can be tapped. All you have to do is pay 2 life and sack another creature, and you can tutor up whatever you need. Very good card. And on a side note, I know the Streets of New Capenna are going to be all demon based, so I would maybe start getting my hands on some of these demons. I think they're going to start to go up in value. So that's just my humble opinion. Next, another demon, Villas, Broker of Blood. This guy's really good. Another 8-ball. He's a flyer. Pay 2 life. Target creature gets -1/-1 until end of turn. Whenever you lose life, draw that many cards. So even if you're killing 1/1s, you will be able to draw 2 cards. So, and it says whenever you lose life, draw that many cards. So if somebody starts damaging you, you can draw cards looking for answers. Another very good card. Netzahal Primal Tide. I've got this guy in here. I wish he was a Leviathan also, but he's an Elder Dinosaur. If you cast him in this deck, which I doubt you will, it can't be countered. But then also you have no maximum hand size. Whenever an opponent casts a non-creature spell, draw a card. So you're going to be drawing all kinds of cards with this guy. And then if they go to try to kill it, you can discard 3 cards, exile Netzahal, return it to the battlefield tapped under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. So that's a very good card. You'll be drawing all kinds of cards, drawing answers. Next is Sholdred Whispering One. We all know about her. She's a 6/6 Swamp Walk. At the beginning of your upkeep, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. At the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, that player sacrifices a creature. This card can be very devastating early. If you drop this 4th or 5th turn, people are just starting out. They may only have 1 or 2 creatures, and this really is very disruptive to your opponents when you get it out early. She also has Swamp Walk. Silent Blade Oni. He's a 6/5 Demon Ninja. Whenever Silent Blade Oni deals combat damage to a player, look at that player's hand. You may cast a non-land card in it without paying that card's mana cost. Same thing, you cheat this guy in with Umezawa, and now you get to look at their hand. You know what they're playing with, what they're planning, and now you can cast a non-land card in it. Darksteel Colossus. I absolutely love this guy. I got him in here. I've had this guy for a long time, probably since the early 2000s. Before Blightsteel came along, he was the daddy of the Mac Daddies. But he's an 11/11 Trampler. The reason why he's in here is he's indestructible. He's hard to deal with. But then also, with some other cards, you can basically make him a Blightsteel Colossus, which I'll show you here in a second. Same thing with Ulamog. If you cheat him in, he smashes for 10. He's indestructible. Whenever he attacks, defending player exiles the top 20 cards of his or her library. That's very devastating. Emrakul, the Promised End. 13/13 Flyer Trample. But you could also cast this out of your graveyard. It's 1 less casting cost for each card type among cards in your graveyard. But then when you cast Emrakul, you gain control of target opponent during that player's next turn. I've seen this where somebody has taken somebody else's turn, and it's just devastating to that person. Flying Trample and Protection from Instants. Next, we've got Kozilek, Butcher of Truth. Again, if you don't have the budget for this guy, we understand. Ulamog 2 is another one that I don't have in here, but this guy's very good. If you're able to cast him, you can draw 4 cards, but then also it hits for 12, and it's got Annihilator 4. But beside that also, let's say that you're in a game and somebody's trying to mill you out, or you've got a bunch of things in your graveyard that you don't want to be exiled or whatever. Anyway, you can, when Kozilek is killed, or if you discard him, it recycles your graveyard back into your deck. That could be useful later. I've also got Platinum Empyrean in the deck. Like I said, everybody's going to be gunning for you, and so you're going to need ways to protect yourself, and this will give you some staying power. Once you put this in, let's say you put a Helm of the Host on it and just keep creating more, it's going to be hard to take you out of the game. Demon at Death's Gate. I've got this guy in here because he is a 9/9 Flying Trampler, but also you may pay 6 life and sacrifice 3 black creatures rather than pay Demon of Death's Gate's mana cost. So let's say you've got 3 fairies or 3 zombies out there. You could sacrifice them, pay 6 life, and bang, you got a flying 9-ball out there. So besides being able to cheat him into play with Umezawa, you can also cheat him in by sacrificing creatures. Here's another cheap alternative for the more expensive Eldrazi. If you don't have the budget, you can flash this guy in. He costs 1 less to cast for each attacking creature. He has trample. When Ancient Stone Idol dies, create a 6/12 colorless construct artifact creature token with trample. So again, with the staying power, if this guy gets killed, you create another token that's a 6/12, and you're going to need it. You're going to need it because everybody on the table is going to be gunning for you. And this is grafted exoskeleton. Basically, with the grafted exoskeleton and the Darksteel Colossus, you get to create your own Blightsteel Colossus. In this deck, because you have reanimation spells, you don't really care if your creatures get killed. Grafted Exoskeleton is 4 to cast. It says equipped creature gets +2/+2 and has infect. So you can put this on any one of your creatures and make it a Darksteel Colossus. The only downside is whenever the grafted exoskeleton becomes unattached from a permanent, sacrifice that permanent. So if somebody kills this equipment, you're going to have to sacrifice that creature. But like I said, you don't really care. You're popping these big creatures out very easily, and you're reanimating them. So that's why I put this card in the deck. It's a very good card. And there he is, Blightsteel Colossus, the much vaunted. Everybody's talking about it. The old Umezawa and Blightsteel Colossus combo. Next, I've got Glasspool Shore in there. This is a land that enters the battlefield tapped, but if you've got a big creature that you'd like to copy, like let's say a Blightsteel Colossus, you can, for 1 blue, 2 colorless, cast this guy, and you may have it enter the battlefield as a copy of a creature you control, except it's a shapeshifter rogue in addition to its other types. So what's better than 1 Blightsteel Colossus? 2 Blightsteel Colossuses. Next, I've got Vito, Thorn of the Dusk Rose in here. The reason why I have Vito in here is because I've played this deck a few times, and it needs staying power. Everybody's going to be attacking you, but then also you don't have ways to, gain life until I put this card in there. But this card is also in my Kalia deck. He's a legendary creature. Whenever you gain life, target opponent loses that much life. And for 2 black, 3 colorless creatures you control, gain life link until end of turn. So if the game's going along and you're getting low, you can play this guy. You're going to have big creatures. You're going to swing in, and you're going to get 10, 20, 30 points of life back, and you're going to be able to deal that much damage to some other player. You may be able to take out 2 players at once and double or triple your life. So that's why this guy's in there. He's a 1/3. He's also unblockable with the ninja chick I showed you earlier. Quicksilver Amulet. I absolutely love portals. Another way to cheaply cheat these creatures into play. Akroma's Memorial. This card is an all-star. This card, once you play this, you nullify maybe 40 to 60% or more of the table. And what I mean by that is black and red are probably some of the most popular colors that are played out there. And when you drop this, there's just absolutely nothing they can do. Red may be able to kill the artifact, but black especially is just screwed. Creatures you control have flying, first strike, vigilance, trample, haste, and protection from black and from red. So this allows you to make your creatures flying, give them first strike, vigilance, trample, haste, and pro black and red. I mean, that's just devastating. I played with this card a lot, and once you drop this, you're able to just attack at will and nobody really can hit you back because your flyers have first strike, vigilance, pro black, and red. So this is a very, very strong card. It doesn't get played enough. So I would highly recommend getting some if you can afford them. And then we've got the mana base. I got a mana crypt in there. That helps with the ninjutsu abilities that you're going to be activating later. Soul Ring, Thematic Compass. Now Thematic Compass is good because late game, early game you can draw basic lands, but then late game, if you draw it, you just play it and it becomes a Maze of Ith. Sort of the Animist might be better in this deck with your unblockables. Every turn you could swing in with an unblockable creature and grab a basic land, either a swamp or an island. I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm probably going to swap Thematic Compass out for Sword of the Animist. But it's a good placeholder for now until I get it in there. Arcane Signet. Unstable Obelisk is in there. Again, because of this particular build, even if you were to do, counter spells, a lot of counter spells in this deck, if you're playing in a big table, you're not going to be able to counterspell everything. So it's good to have things that can eliminate permanents that are giving you problems later on once you see that they are a problem. And that's why Unstable Obelisk is in this deck. You can use it to get colorless, but then you can use it to destroy a target permanent for 7 mana tap. I've got Filth in here to give all my creatures Swamp Walk, but I'm probably going to change this out for Wonder to give them all flying. Lightning Greaves, that's going to help protect your commander and give your other big creatures haste. Whisper Silk Cloak, same thing, gives your creatures protection and makes them unblockable. Here's another really good card that I like. If again, like Luminarch Ascension, if my deck has black, it has this card in it because it's just great. If your commander gets killed, you let it go in the graveyard, and then you pay 1 black, 1 colorless, pay 2 life, return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. I mean, that's just amazing. And this card starts off the reanimation package that I have in this deck. Next, we've got Liliana Death's Majesty. She's 2 black, 3 colorless, +1, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. Put the top 2 cards of your library into your graveyard. -3, you're able to reanimate a creature card from your graveyard, and it's also a zombie. And then -7, destroy all non-zombie creatures. You're never going to be wanting to ult with this. What you're going to be doing is you're going to be creating zombies and putting cards in your graveyard, and then you're going to be reanimating them out with her or your other reanimation spells. There it is, Animate Dead. I've had this card forever, as you can tell. Get any card out of any graveyard out and put it into play under your control. And this card's the reason why you might want to be using Doom Whisper's ability. You might want to fill your graveyard full of creatures with Liliana and with Doom Whisper, so then you could board wipe and put all of your creatures onto the battlefield. Next is Victimize, very good card. The other day I was playing and making zombies with Liliana, and then I sacrificed one of those tokens with a Victimize and pulled 2 big fatties out of my graveyard. It's a sorcery. Same thing, Soul Exchange. It's an old card from Fallen Empires. Sacrifice a creature, remove it from the game, but then you can pull a card out of a creature card out of your graveyard. Another very good card. Dread Return, same thing, sorcery. It allows you to reanimate one of your creatures, but then later you can flash back it when this sorcery is in your graveyard, sacrifice 3 creatures and reanimate a creature. Same thing with the fairies and the zombies that you could create, or your smaller creatures. You can use this to flash back and bring a creature out of your graveyard. Next is Forbid. This is a counter spell that keeps it's the gift that keeps on giving. 2 blue, 1 colorless, buyback, choose and discard 2 cards, counter target spell. If you've got a big grip, and you will because of all the card drawing power that this deck has, what you can do is counter spell a spell, toss 2 creatures in your graveyard, and then reanimate them and keep your counter spell. Just keep doing it. Mystic Sanctuary, it's an island. It enters the battlefield tapped unless you control 3 or more other islands, which you probably will. If you play this late game, which you should, when it enters the battlefield, you may put target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard on top of your library, so you can grab it, your Dread Return or your counter spell or a reanimate spell. And there's Shizo Death Storehouse. It's going up in value. There's a lot of legendaries in this deck, as you can see, and this gives them fear until end of turn for 1 black and tapping it. And I put Kaito Suzuki in here. 1 black, 1 blue, 1 colorless at the beginning of your end step. If Shizuki entered the battlefield this turn, he phases out. So the way you're probably going to use this guy is you're going to play him. You're going to attack with 1 of your unblockables. You're going to +1 him to draw a card, and then you're just going to keep trying to plus him until you can ult him. And the ult says you get an emblem with whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player. Search your library for a blue or black creature card, put it on the battlefield, then shuffle. So as you can see, very good card. I put it in here for the card drawing power that it's going to give you. Helm of the Host, very good card. You put this on anything and it'll create copies of it. Like I said, I was making duplicates to exile something every turn, or you can Blightsteel Colossuses, any big creature you can make a copy of with this. Rogue's Passage, make your big creatures unblockable. Cabal Coffers also works really well with Urborg, the land I showed you earlier that makes all your land swamps. This gives you massive amounts of mana to cast your creatures if you need to. And that's pretty much it. That's my Umezawa bill. I hope you enjoyed it. I know this video is getting to be about an hour long, so I will sign off now. But again, please subscribe and leave some comments below. Let me know how we're doing here at the Commander's Crypt. Like I said, we're a new channel, and we've got a lot of exciting things in the future. A lot of contests, and yeah, that's it. So have a good day, and we will see you soon here at the Commander's Crypt, New Orleans.